Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wellness by Design today. Do you want to know about how to live a lighter life? We can learn these different healing habits to live a lighter life and really change all areas of our life to feel better, to reduce stress, reduce pain. I'm really excited to welcome my guest today, Heather Aardema. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, Jean. Thanks for having me.
Well, I just love everything you do, and you are also a dear friend of mine. I love sharing your message about living lighter. It's a really unique, beautiful message. I'm going to tell everyone about you by reading your bio. So Heather Aardema is a national board certified functional medicine certified health coach. She's the founder of the School of Living Lighter, a weight loss methodology grounded in minimalism, functional medicine, and cognitive behavior. By releasing the clutter in their minds, bodies, and homes, her clients are actively living lighter as they tackle their clutter, uncomplicate their lives, and lose weight for good. She's been featured on popular wellness and minimalism platforms such as No Sidebar, Minimalism Life, Becoming Minimalist, Optimal Living Daily, and Optimal Health Daily. Explore her DIY courses, monthly membership, and private coaching for your lightest life yet. Fantastic, Heather. How,
Thank you.
how did you get on this whole minimalism
Oh,
bandwagon?
that's such a good question. I think because my life felt really heavy,
Mm.
really heavy and really cluttered. And so I'll tell you, I, like many people, I did graduate from high school, go to college. Um, what was a little different is I did a little stint in South America. But when I came back, I dove headfirst into corporate. And I did that because I thought it would make my parents happy. I thought it was the thing you were supposed to do. And I blinked, and 20 years later, I was still in corporate America. And I had had some very powerful moments and wonderful challenges and aspects that I was really proud of. But for the most part, I knew there was something greater, something bigger. It was a a role that no longer really excited me. And so I was feeling heavy. I was feeling like I had corporate clutter, basically, and that I wanted to get out. And so I created a plan so that I could exit. And once I did, I this is kind of a funny story. I I still spent as if I were making my corporate salary. And I kind of forgot that I wasn't making that money anymore.
Whoops.
And I spent through our savings. I say it's a funny story. It's a funny story now. It was not a funny story
Not
as we were
then.
going through it. Right. But it was such a wonderful opportunity for me because I went through our savings and then I realized, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And it woke me up. And I found my way to minimalism, which is not frugality or deprivation, but really it's an intentionality. And it's this beautiful pathway towards the things that matter most. And I realized buying, everything, like trying to buy my happiness. Well, one thing, I no longer needed it. I felt like I needed that when I was in corporate because I was feeling empty. But when I found my way to minimalism, it was more about this abundance of peace, abundance of calm, abundance of quality over quantity. And it just really woke up something inside of me. And I love the intentionality behind it. So that's how I made my way to minimalism. So I call myself an aspiring minimalist, but maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. I think I am a minimalist because I am intentionally focusing now on the things that matter most.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to say to realize that when we have when we have less of all this stuff, which we are just buying and accumulating because we think it's going to make us feel good, get to a point where we realize it doesn't feel good, but we can open ourselves up to abundance in other areas that you talked about, all abundance of love, abundance of quality over quantity, abundance of even of time, because you're not having to deal with all that stuff. But you've also linked this minimalism with weight loss.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting concept, so let's hear about that.
Yes. Well, so I'm not the only one that has tried to buy their way to happiness. And that's something that when I worked in corporate, I worked in advertising. So it was my job to come up with the idea that you would see in a TV commercial that told the person, "Oh my gosh, my life is not complete until I buy this thing." And so it's woven into the fabric of society, this idea that more is always more. And that the idea that less can be more feels counterintuitive, but it's a really powerful idea. So how does all of this, how does it map back to weight loss? So I have my own weight story. I struggled with weight the last year of high school. I had a coach say to me, "Heather, if you want to be competitive next season, you need to lose some weight." I was mortified, and but the truth was, he was right. I had put on weight, and basically, it was my body at the time just saying, "We can no longer tolerate these types of foods." They weren't quality foods. I was basically putting clutter into my body.
Right.
And then I was like, "Why? Why? What's happening?" Well, it was clutter. It was clutter. It was not good for me. And so what I like to focus on is if we focus on our mind clutter, the thoughts that we're not enough or we're too much, there's a huge continuum there. If we focus on body clutter, so there's not a bad food or a wrong food, but if a food is not serving you and if it's leaving you feeling heavy or feeling raw, um, that would be clutter. And then so we focus on the mind clutter, the body clutter, and then the home clutter. So things that you have in your home, are they creating a overall supportive environment or not? And when we focus on those three areas, our lives get lighter, and that is always reflected in the scale. Our bodies get lighter too. So I can give you an example of how this can come to play. So Jane, I was born with FOMO, a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out. And my parents like were making, I have two sisters. I was always trying to get more toast than my sisters, or I was always like trying to get the bigger piece of cake. And this actually went beyond food as well, though. I never said no to an invitation. So I had a lot of calendar clutter because as my mom would say, I was burning the candle at both ends.
Right.
And but I didn't want to say no. I was afraid of saying no. What if
You
I
might
don't?
miss out.
Right, right. So when we go back to, or when we focus back on weight loss, one of the tools that I like to share with my clients is this idea that you can flip your FOMO to something very powerful that is an idea that came from the minimalism world, and it's called JOMO. You've heard of that one, right?
Yes. Joy
Okay.
of missing out.
Exactly. Joy of missing out. It's such an empowering concept. It means that we can say no to all the good opportunities and mediocre opportunities so that we can say yes to the very few great opportunities. It
Mm.
is this prioritization. It is this extra intentionality. And so how we connect that to food is there are certain foods that are absolutely clutter in our bodies, and everybody's body is unique and different. So what's clutter in my body might not be clutter in your body. But what I like to do with my clients is come up with a very small JOMO list, joy of missing out, one or two foods or food groups that might be behaving as clutter in your body. And usually we have a gut feel on what that might be or a hypothesis.
Yeah.
And if you focus on, okay, that one or two food or food groups, usually what will happen is your weight will fall off. So you're focusing, I'm just going to experiment by not eating those things for a few weeks. Let's see what happens and then go from there. Usually what happens in weight loss is we think that we have to do all or nothing, basically meaning nothing, because then we make it too hard on ourselves. But we feel like, oh gosh, I have to get rid of every food group. There's nothing I can eat. And we overcomplicate it. So this is a beautiful way to simplify things and say, you know what? Those foods are probably okay. Those foods are probably not the foods that are getting in the way of where you are right now and your vision for a lighter life and a lighter body. Let's just find out one or two foods that if you can get your head around and release those, your life will be lighter. And then we go from
Mm.
there.
Right. And so what we're talking about here is it's really a habit of thinking. So the same habits that are driving us to eat too much, or have too much on our calendar, or have too many things in our house, or have too many thoughts that aren't serving us. Those are habits. And
Mm.
so when we tackle the habit in one area, we're going to affect all areas. So I know you've got we know that there's this connection between clutter and stress. So mind, body, and home clutter and stress. So you've been doing some research into the studies on that, right?
Yes, yeah. So the research isn't mine, but there is research that exists and it's fascinating. So I'll share two studies briefly. Um, all right. So the first study, they took a group of respondents and they broke them into two groups. Group A filled out paperwork in a very clean space. Group B filled out the exact same paperwork in a very messy space. Upon completion of the paperwork, the respondents were thanked and they were offered a candy bar and an apple. Thank you so much for filling out this paperwork. Here, can we give you a candy bar or apple? If you did the paperwork in the clean office, you were twice as likely to choose the apple over the candy bar. So we know, yes, we know that our surroundings have a direct impact on our decision making. And I will tell you, if I walk into my house and it is full of it just feels messy. I have two boys, they're 10 and 11, and I I share this often, but it's like, gosh, if their socks are on the floor in the living room, and there's never like two socks, it's always like, lost socks. Anyway, if I see that, I can feel my cortisol, like, oh, I can feel that stress hormone.
Yeah.
And that's basically the second study. So in the second study, researchers did something called ethnographic research, where they went into the homes of 35 plus families, and they measured through saliva sampling, they measured cortisol levels and looked at the changes as the homeowners would talk about their clutter. So this was perceived clutter. So you could walk into one house and say, well, that's not so messy. And somebody else could walk in and say, oh my gosh, that's so messy. So
Right. Perception matters.
It matters. Yes. So perceived clutter. So women who were describing their homes as unfinished, like full of unfinished projects or messy, using terms like that, their cortisol was through the roof. Whereas women who are like, no, my house looks pretty good. Like, I mean, there is a direct relationship there. And so we know there's a physiological response when we see that clutter and our perceptions of that clutter.
Heather, this makes so much sense because we know that when we have stress, we get that cortisol. But not only that, it creates changes in actually our brain, right? Our cognitive brain starts to shrink, and then we don't make as good decisions. So we're not really thinking through repercussions. So choosing the candy bar over the apple. So it makes total sense that there's this connection between stress and so clutter. We know that clutter or perception of clutter can create stress in us, and then that's affecting our decision making, which has all these repercussions in other areas of our lives. So yeah, really amazing. So you've got, I interviewed your co-host, Dr. Rob Downey, last week on the show. Two of you are hosting this Healing Habits Summit coming up. What are the dates again?
March 21st to the 27th.
Okay.
And it's all about these shifts that you can make for a health-filled life. So the shifts aren't just that, oh, here are the things to do. It's much more anchored into the mental exploration to take so that those shifts are possible. We all know, oh yes, I should eat better, sleep better, get out and move more. But what is it going to take to actually get us to do those things? And so we really hone in on that mental playground and learning how to empower ourselves so that we can move forward into the vision that we have for our best lives possible.
Right. So on the summit, people are going to be hearing from people. So we've all got enough information. Like we know what we need to do, but it's like, how do we do it? How do we do it? So you're interviewing all these people that are going to help people understand how to make those changes so that you can implement these healing habits in your life. And I know, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And I would say like the only like this is where I feel like this is really new and really different from anything else out there. Is the idea that yes, there are a lot of books on behavior change. One of my favorite books was Atomic Habits.
I love
Tiny
that.
Habits is another book. They're really, really good books. Most of these books focus on the behavior science. So, for example, do you want to take in a new habit, anchor it to something you're already doing? Some really smart ways to bring in these new habits. Where I think most of them miss the mark, or where there's lots of potential for opportunity, is to look at it through the lens of our well-being, of our health. Are we in fight and flight, or fight or flight, and we're trying to take on new habits? Those are never going to stick. And so a lot of our speakers give us multiple ways to look at the health, what we can do from a health angle, so that we can then embrace these habits. So we've got phenomenal health experts, and also we've got the behavior change experts as well.
Fantastic. And I know that you've got these really great guides. I talked about one that Dr. Rob had provided. So anyone signs up, you can get these free guides. And I know you created two really great ones, one about weight loss and one about reducing clutter in your home. So let's hear a little bit about those.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? They were so cathartic to write, to think through, and to put together. And I'm so glad for that opportunity. And yeah, here's the thing, like life can feel really heavy, and our bodies are a manifestation of the inner dialogue that we have often. And so I think the two go hand in hand, which is great because you can get them both when you register. They're free, no extra cost. But in these guides, so for example, in the weight loss guide, I share the playing field. So if you think about it, so often we're like, oh, well, I have to do this diet. We may not really understand the depth of the diet. Even the word diet can leave a sour taste in our mouth. But if we don't know what we're up against, so if we don't know what the food industry is doing, and if they're, that they're putting all this sugar into foods, and they've got something called the bliss point that keeps us addicted, well, I'll just say it's really eye-opening when you know what's going on, and it's very empowering because then you can make different choices. And I will say the same goes for our clutter. So it's the same strategy. How can we hook people in? How can we get them to buy more? When we don't know how to feel our feelings, and most of us don't, most of us have never been taught. It's not your parents' fault; they didn't know either. So we were never taught how to think on purpose, because that's where our feelings come from, our thoughts. And so these guides open that doorway to thinking on purpose, what it can do for you. And that just because you see an advertisement doesn't mean you have to buy that thing if you don't really want it, that the happiness is not going to come from that. It's going to come from these other areas. Just like the happiness is not going to come from the food that you're eating to buffer from feeling certain feelings, or trying to create some space between something that's uncomfortable. And so both those guides go into the playing fields in their respective spaces, and then give some really powerful tips on how to move forward, how to make a difference. Yes, they're very actionable.
Beautiful. I've got a link there, so I'm just going to put it up on the screen there now, and of course, I will have it in the notes as well. If people want to go sign up right now, they can download right away your two guides and Dr. Rob's guide in there. I think there's another guide as well.
Yes.
Also, they can get 3 of the expert talks, right?
Yes. We have 3 amazing experts. Jane, you're of course one of those. The talks are phenomenal. So you get 3 extra talks. You get just really, really helpful guides. There are a few other things, but the goal is not to just inundate with more information,
right?
But to give information that is actionable and meaningful, and that will spur ideas on what you can do starting right now, right this very moment.
So good because, really people think they have to make these great big sweeping changes and it just has to be little baby steps. I say in my group all the time, baby steps will take you anywhere as long as you keep taking them, right? But they can be baby steps, just little steps that can create these changes in your life. So that is really amazing. I love everything that you're sharing. Who are some of the people that are on the summit? Like what are some things that you feel like were really
Well, some of the behavior change specialists that I really like, we have Dr. Michael Arloski, who I first came across actually when I was in the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy.
Me
Uh,
too.
I read his book and I thought it was amazing, and I reached out to him and he said yes, and so he talks about a well life vision and how that's different than goal setting and how you can make that really an empowering part of your story. Um, Another interview that I will tell you, I was like holding on for dear life. This was Beth Handel of the Handel Group. Her sister wrote the book, Maybe It's You, and was a coach to, on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember it right now. Anyway, phenomenal coach, phenomenal thinking. And she goes into this idea that I use a lot in my own life called promises and consequences. And it's a way to really wake up to the behavior that you're embracing. And if we say we've got these goals and these dreams, well, if you really want them, it's one of the most powerful tools I've ever come across. Promises and consequences. So watch the summit. The summit is free, but watch that interview and you will take so many notes. It's that good. And that's something that you can incorporate into your life right away too.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Heather, I always ask my guests one last thing. So I'm going to ask you this. What's one action someone could take today to improve their health?
That's really a beautiful question. And I would say the one action that you can take to improve your health is to pause, to stop, to, we always are go, 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 do, accomplish, accomplish, accomplish. And I think one of the biggest regrets of people towards the end of their lives is, wow, I did not pause and ask myself, are these the things that really matter? Are these the things that matter most to me? And I think that's the biggest gift you can give yourself. And it will absolutely pave the way towards a lighter life. If you can pause, if you can stop, if you can release the distractions, remove the distractions that are removing you from your life. And if you can ask yourself the question, is this what matters most? Is this my path?
Right. Oh, that's so beautiful. Like, why wait to get to the end of our life to ask that question? Like, do that now. Do all those things now. That's such a beautiful reminder for all of us to do the pause. It's such a minimalist thing to do as well, right? Make that space to have the pause.
Yeah.
Heather, is there anything else we haven't covered yet that you would like to tell the audience about?
Well, I guess just one more idea that I would love to
Okay.
share. And so often when we think of clutter, because yes, I'm that minimalist. Do I have clutter? Yes, I have clutter. We all have clutter. We're all a work in progress. But just here's the thing, and we've touched on it lightly, but I just want to hammer it in. Clutter, it's not just the stuff, like an uncomfortable amount of stuff. It's not just a countertop that needs to be cleared or a closet that is bursting, with clothes that don't fit. It's not just the stuff. It's not just the things. I think the heavier clutter, the heaviest clutter, are the thoughts. Are the thoughts that
So
are
right.
getting in your way of you showing up the way you know you can, the way you want to, your vision of your best self. And so when we address that clutter, the mental clutter, the mind clutter, there is such a positive cascade that all of a sudden you'll look around and you're like, oh, my house feels lighter. Oh my gosh, my body feels lighter. And it's because you've addressed the mental clutter. That clutter is not doing you any good at all. It's keeping you exactly where you are, stuck in this like sea of misery, and you can get out. You can swim to the other side. No question
Beautiful.
about it if you adjust the clutter.
So true. And you talk about this mind clutter leading to excess weight, like overeating, excess weight. I talk about mind clutter, like these thoughts leading to pain and inflammation in our body. Like it's really the same thing. It's just manifesting in different ways for different
Mhm.
people. But you're right. The thoughts that we think over and over again are so important and impact every aspect of our life. Heather, Aardema, this has been really fantastic. I'm so inspired by everything that you've said, and I know that our audience is going to be inspired too. Where can people find more about you?
Okay, so where they can find more about me, schooloflivinglighter.com. And Facebook is the same. On Instagram, it's Heather Aardema. And I just have one more little thought.
Oh, go ahead.
Every thought is optional. We don't have
Mhm.
to think. So if you notice that you've got some heaviness inside, ask yourself, how is this serving me? And is there a different thought? It's kind of like, can I take this thought off as if it were a shirt and put a different thought on? Try on a different thought and see if it feels better. Remember, every thought truly is optional.
It is. Once you realize, if we can like be that observer and realize, oh, I am having this thought, and this is a choice. This
Yes.
is a choice I can make. And
Yes.
then you can change it to a thought that helps you better, serves you better. And it's a constant thing. We're never like always thinking perfect thoughts that are serving us. So it's always being this observer of our thoughts and wondering, can we change this so that we can actually create that life that we want? Heather, thank you so much. I know you're tight on time, so I'm just we're going to end the show here now, but this has been absolutely fabulous. I hope people sign up for your Healing Habits Summit because there's so much to learn there from so many amazing speakers. And you are doing such beautiful work in this world. I'm so thankful for your shining light in this world.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for gifting me this space today.
Well, thanks for being here, and thanks to everyone for watching and listening to Wellness by Design today.